guys. Hopefully, a lot of these literary terms are already familiar to you, so I'm going to go a little quickly. And as you know, you should also be recording the fill in the blanks or underlining in your packets anything that you don't know or things that are unfamiliar to you or that you would like a reminder for. So, if there's an element that you're unsure of, or you could use a reminder before the post test, just note it and that will help you a lot. So, setting is time and place. A lot of people forget that it's the time as well. A flashback is when you go back in time earlier than the main story. So, How I Met Your Mother is entirely in flashbacks. Point of view, and we can go more in depth with first, second, and third, and there's multiple types of third person, but it's how the story is narrated or told and in what perspective. So Lord of the Rings are third person and they're from an outside point of view. Metaphor, comparison of two unlike items. Simile compares them using like or as. Those are really easy. So since you guys are now in high school, the goal is to say, okay, you're using a metaphor or simile. Why? Why is that more effective than just calling a spade a spade? And I'm using figurative language by saying calling a spade a spade. So how is that more effective? Is it more emotional to use them? Does it show expertise? Does it use imagery? What else is it getting at? It's not good enough just to identify figurative language. What is its function is what I'm getting at. An aphorism. That's one you might not know yet. It's a brief sentence or phrase that includes wisdom. So a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, or absence makes the heart grow fonder. Those are all aphorisms. Allusions, not illusion, but allusions. And those are basically references to a person, place, thing, or idea of historical, cultural, literal, or political significance. So one of my favorite examples is the word quixotic. And the word quixotic comes from Cervantes' Don Quixote, which is the first modern novel, and it was written in Spain in, I think, 1603 or 1605 by, I already said the author. And basically, he is insane. And so quixotic means stupid and foolish or insane. And so when you see the word quixotic, it's an allusion to Don Quixote. Another popular allusion in Western literature is the Bible. And I'm not trying to proselytize, I'm not trying to say you should believe anything, but you should be aware that there are biblical allusions and they are frequent because for most of the time in the United States and in Europe or Western civilization, people were expected to go to church and read the Bible. So of course, allusions to it would pop up in literature. You'll also see allusions in pop culture. The Mad Woman in the Attic comes from Jane Eyre. Just random things that happen. So you'll see allusions from pop culture too. Irony is kind of hard to grasp, but it's basically something that's incongruous or there's a discrepancy. So something that you expect and it doesn't happen. And it can be humorous. So there's three types of irony, just to make your lives a little bit harder, but you are in high school, so you're going to get the more advanced definitions. There's dramatic irony. So that means there's a difference from what a character says or thinks and what the reader or audience knows to be true. So in Othello, which is Shakespeare, Iago tells the audience, or he's telling Rodrigo, but the audience knows from the beginning, Iago does not like Othello and is plotting against him. But to Othello's face, Iago is, being all deferential and nice to Othello. So we know that that is dramatic irony. Then we have situational irony, when there is an incongruity between the appearance and reality. So this is something that is probably going to happen in Gatsby because that is one of the big ideas that appearances aren't always what they seem. And then there's verbal irony. And what is said is the opposite of what is meant. And so verbal irony is very similar to sarcasm. The difference between verbal irony and sarcasm is meant to mock or insult, and verbal irony is not meant to do that. So chances are you're being ironic rather than sarcastic. But maybe you're being sarcastic too. After all, you are teenagers. Okay, more literary devices. Symbolism, you know this. Symbols tend to be nouns or objects, and there's a different meaning from their literal sense, like rose is a symbol of love, specifically a red rose. Each color of rose means something different, which is kind of cool. You can also have symbolic characters. And is Daisy a symbolic character in Gatsby? So if you're wondering, does Gatsby actually love her or objectify her? Maybe if he does objectify her, does that make her a symbolic character? Something to think about. Internal and external conflict. Internal means that the character is having a psychological struggle, so something in their mind that we can't see. External conflict is people like hitting each other or fighting with words. An epiphany isn't just a great idea. The literary device of it is when a divine or supernatural being comes into play. A motif is an object, an idea, or image that is repeated continually to help develop a theme. So if you're looking at a theme in Gatsby, you might want to pay attention to objects that reappear, and that could help you point towards a theme. A character foil is a character whose qualities contrast with another character. So maybe Gatsby contrasts with Tom or Nick, or maybe Daisy contrasts with Myrtle or Jordan. So those are things to think about. And again, sorry, I'm going to go back to literary devices. If you ever identify a character foil or a symbol and you write about it in your essay, which is awesome, be sure to explain why. What is the function of that? How does that affect the reader? How does that make the prose higher quality? How does that affect the plot or characterization or conflict? You can explain all of those things, and it shows your analysis and thought process, and it makes the essay so much more fun to read and write. So really show me like what you are thinking, because remember, you think, and you can think critically and analyze. AI cannot do that. And so even though you're probably not going to be an English major or English professor, you can use these skills in other professions, and ChatGPT cannot use these things. So please take the time to practice this. It's hard, but it's like weightlifting for your brain. So take advantage of this opportunity. Think of it as an opportunity rather than a chore that I'm forcing you to do. Okay, so the Jazz Age. One thing that makes The Great Gatsby one of the great American novels is that it includes information or the context of the Jazz Age. So what was that? It was in the 1920s and 1930s when jazz music was very popular. So I challenge you to put on some jazz music when on your Spotify or whatever. Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday. Those are all like classic jazz musicians that you can listen to. And they're amazing. So I highly recommend them. It started in New Orleans, and it coincided with Prohibition, the Roaring Twenties, and speakeasies. Speakeasies are illegal and hidden places to find alcohol and dances. So they looked like normal doors, just like not even a business sign. So you would have to know where to find them. And usually it was like a store front and then in a back room. That's when you like went downstairs or something, and there'd be this huge party going on. Fitzgerald was in Paris in the 1920s, where there was no prohibition, and he was very influential there, and Paris was influential. You know, it's always like the heart of culture. He became friends with Ernest Hemingway, but Hemingway didn't like Zelda, and he called her insane, which when someone's insulting your wife, it's hard to like maintain a relationship, right? They also drank a lot, and if you were overdoing it, it's hard to focus, and then he couldn't really write. But it was easy for him to write short stories, which brought in the money. In the 1920s, there was also gambling. You've probably seen TV shows about the mafia running rampant and controlling the government in Chicago and New York. So I would prefer you to watch documentaries on that if that interests you, rather than just go straight to the fictional accounts. And then you could compare and contrast and see like how accurate they are. Political corruption. These are also controversial topics. So if they do interest you, you could research them for your semester-long controversial project in the spring. And they're really interesting, so have at it. You can research a specific mob boss if you wanted to as well. Like, why not? And then women also got the right to vote in the 1920s. So we're in the 2020s, which is kind of crazy to me. So it's only been 100 years that women have had the right to vote. And then these are two pictures of dancing, and you can see the flapper dress on the right, and they are doing the Charleston type of swing dancing on the left, both of which are really fun. If you ever get the opportunity to do swing dancing, I highly recommend it. It's extremely athletic and fun and goofy, and yeah. Okay, gender studies and queer theory. These are two types of ways to analyze literature. And basically, when you read literature, you can look at it through various lenses. You can't read through all of the lenses all of the time because it's too much. So I teach these to you because you're in an advanced English class, and why not? Like, why not learn how to analyze English or literature in various academic elevated ways? So that's the point. These didn't start until the early 1990s, which is in my lifetime, so they're less than 40 years old. And when you read, basically you're asking these questions and analyzing these concepts. What are the important aspects of gender? What are theories of gender and sexuality, which you would have to read some background information on? And it challenges the idea that heterosexuality is normal. It was influenced by Michel Foucault, who's French, and it's interdisciplinary because it involves politics, economics, sexuality, race, class, ability, religion, citizen status, region of the world, and life experiences. And basically, it looks at identity and how identity is or is not connected to someone's gender. And is gender a social construct? So these are some questions. If the character of Jordan and Nick interest you, you might want to read the book through this theory. So yes, what does Gatsby have to do with queer theory? I'm so glad you asked. There is a scene when Nick Carraway goes off with a homosexual man. So what do we make of that? It is extremely subtle. The only way you can know it is through ellipses. Like Fitzgerald doesn't actually say it. Nick is drunk and ends up with him in his bedroom, and he uses ellipses to show that he's forgetting things, and so we have to read between the ellipses. So when you think punctuation is not important, think again. There are also queer aspects of Catcher in the Rye, as you guys already noticed. And Nick comments that Gatsby wears pink. Granted, pink was originally a boy color in the turn of the 1900s. So boys wore pink in like 1900 to like 1930 or so because that was considered a strong color, and girls wore blue because it was a more gentle color. It didn't really change until after 1930 or so. So when Nick comments that Gatsby wears pink, is he calling him effeminate or more feminine? I don't think so, actually. But unless you know that historical context, you might interpret that incorrectly. Nick likes Jordan, who looks like a boy, which again calls into question Nick's sexuality. He's never been in a serious relationship, though he's almost 30, so is he homosexual? And if so, is he aware of it? And is Jordan a lesbian? It's her name could be a boy's name or a girl's name. She plays a male-dominated sport at the time. She seems masculine. She picks weak men that she can manipulate. And there's more signs. So if this is interesting for you, you might want to read Gatsby like this. So hopefully you have filled out the rest of your note taker and you at least find this thought-provoking.